Hello, I'll be here chatting about data haven technologies, the emerging data haven technologies, that is, and how these relate to enabling humanitarian assistance, disaster relief, public safety, and emergency management. Hi, I'm Madhu, and I'm from Verizon, based out of the Waltham Innovation Center, and I lead our incubation practice. So, what I'm going to talk to you about today is actually going to start with the marketing side, i.e., what are data havens and how are they utilized today? And that's where data havens came from, which are basically anonymized data repositories, and they are shared across corporations. So the idea behind the sharing is that once you anonymize the consumer, if you can kind of still identify the sets of consumers who might react to a particular consumer engagement, that was good enough. And typically, they are used for collaborative marketing, scoring the relevance of a product to a consumer or a family, or deriving actual customer insight where the customer is a business. Now, corporate data havens today, they basically are all about addressing the right consumer at the right place. So it's a very much trying to get to the location of the consumer roughly, and trying to know about whether an offer will be good enough for them. It's about managing discovered knowledge. So the first part is the discovery of the knowledge, and then actually keeping the knowledge in terms of linkages, and then reporting how effective a particular campaign might be that a marketer might drive. Now, the important point is today this is human or marketer driven, and they might target various demographic aspects. Now, the emerging data havens, however, they are actually driven by sensors. And you all heard of the Internet of Things, and suffice to say that uh, we have all kinds of information coming in from sensors, which allows us to get a better idea and possibly derive context. So when you start deriving contextual cues about a consumer, and we're able to anonymize and put that in a data repository, and actually manage the knowledge, that is what your emerging data haven looks like. There are various statistical terms that we use. Most of them are around predictive analytics and machine learning of contextual cues. So importantly, when we start looking at this architecture, it is very cloud centric. And basically, at this point onwards, I'm going to talk to you more about our work in the incubator. And this is where we start drawing the parallels to how this can be used for incident response. So when we wanted to look at location, we didn't want to deal with it as a point on a map, i.e., a latitude, longitude. We wanted to talk about it in terms of a grid or a place. And it turned out that the military grid reference system, the MGRS, had already solved that for us. It was standardized across the world, and we could go all the way, zoom out from 10,000 kilometers square down to 1 square meter, which is very good for indoor positioning, by the way. And basically we could think about every place as a grid, and they were already named. So we had a reference point, a reference name which was standardized, and we started dealing with millions of events per second, and basically solved the context of how we would take all these millions of events into the cloud, ingest it, and then identify anomalous events, which might be 5 or 10 events out of the million, which are worth actioning, which is what we do on the sync tab. And basically those actionable insights are directly acting again back on the consumer per se, and this cycle continues. Now, the modeling tab refers to the fact that there are models that act on the data which help in the transformation. I'm not going to spend time on that. We're going to move on to look at the data itself. And the data can be various types of data, ranging from social media to the more interesting things that you might see here in the second column, if you can read that. Basically, it's NFC, QR, image events, transactions, outfit scans, and sensor data, and traditional marketing like the point of sale data, etc., and event data. So the point is that there's a lot of different types of data that get sucked in, and they get automatically organized up in the cloud in terms of cubes, which happen in real time, and these are dealt with at a high velocity model engine, which actually are learner predictor pairs, and these actually apply the right type of algorithms automatically based on the type of data that it's dealing with and the type of results that are expected. The most important point for the use of this kind of data haven emerging technology in a context of disaster response is that it's very heavily API based, and it's actually based on standard concepts of knowledge management, i.e., resource description format, vocabulary of interlinked data sets, and vocabulary of attribution and governance, which deals with license of the data and things like that. All of these are World Wide Web standards, and basically that this is connectivity agnostic. So you can access this from a web perspective and basically get a chunk of data. But probably the single most important thing is that the data set can be cacheable for local use once it's been anonymized. And these are sensor driven campaigns, so there's a very high velocity at which this is coming from the military grid reference system. So, for example, the picture on the right basically shows a MGRS centric overlay, and it has various levels of precision that you can get down to. But the point is that the grid based insight by which we refer to the grids allows for the use across any part of the earth. Now, when we start looking at the emerging data haven, a couple of things kind of jump out at you, which is basically there's near real-time updates based on the MGRS grids. The RESTful APIs allow for access and also for local access disconnected from the cloud if necessary. And the contextual real-time queues are predictable in terms of saying that here is where the consumer is, or here is the potential actions and things like that associated with a particular grid. And the knowledge management is, of course, standardized. So it looks like everything is here. What are the gaps? So keep in mind that the anonymization was traditionally human. The tool sets, for example, the kernel anonymization tool set, or the University of Texas Dallas tool sets for anonymization, or the things that were created in the Netherlands by the Netherlands Statistical Agency, all of these were meant to actually deal with a much lower volume and variety. And one of the other challenges we have today is that the cost of reconstruction, i.e., you take a piece of data and then you marry it to a bunch of other things, the being able to reconstruct the original identity of the consumer, that risk is pretty high because the cost of that gets lower and lower every day. And so the real challenge is about the de-identification of microdata being a difficult problem that we can get algorithmic help. But the real challenge is about the fact that we need to be able to get reconstruction risk to be pretty low. Now, today, when you look at reconstruction risk, i.e., being able to reconstruct that a particular data refers to a particular consumer, it's really dealt with in a binary situation, a 0 or a 1. You're either able to reconstruct it or you don't, and it's not really graded in terms of the severity or the need for the data. And we believe that that is required if you're going to kind of use data commercial corporate data havens in the context of incident response and those kinds of areas. And so basically, some of the things that emerging data havens bring are the fact that they address contextual real time queues, the RESTful APIs, and of course, the use of standards for knowledge management. The things that need a little bit of work and standardization is the fact that reconstruction risk can be pretty high because of potential marriage of this data, and we'd have to stick to some of the work stuff, i.e., how it's licensed, in order to deal with this. I just wanted to give you a flavor of what emerging data havens are. Glad to kind of talk with you offline. Any questions for me at this point? Thank you, and it's been a pleasure being here. Thank you again.